Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. From a marathon cabinet meeting to crime crackdowns and a DC CDC shakeup, President Trump made headlines all week. We bring you the highlights from the White House. From homelessness and time behind bars to a leading multi-million-dollar tax firm, Scott Curley now inspires others to overcome their own obstacles. He shares us with his story. And what if I told you you're moving your eyes back and forth was part of an effective treatment for PTSD? Vital Signs Brendon Fallon shares insights from a leading clinical psychologist on eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on this Sunday. It's been a week of major decisions from President Trump, from a marathon cabinet meeting to tougher crime measures and changes at the CDC. NTD's Daniel Monahan breaks down the top White House moments in this week's review.
President Trump hosted a 3-hour-plus cabinet meeting at the White House, described as the longest public White House event ever.
The country is doing well. We're respected all over the world like never before, probably.
At the cabinet meeting, NTD's Iris Tao thanked President Trump for his efforts to make D.C. safe and shared her own traumatic story about being pistol whipped in the city in an attempted robbery.
If he had shot me, I could have died right there in the middle of nowhere without my families or my friends knowing.
Trump signaled a softening on the issue of Chinese students studying in the U.S., indicating that visas could be given for up to 600,000 Chinese students.
I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here. Now, with that, we check and we're careful and we see who's there.
In May, Secretary of State Rubio said the U.S. would aggressively remove visas of Chinese students.
President Trump announced that his administration would seek the death penalty in murder cases in D.C.
If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty.
National Guard members began carrying sidearms in D.C. this week. Mayor Muriel Bowser said at a Wednesday press conference that carjackings in the nation's capital are down 87% since the federal law enforcement takeover.
We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer.
An executive order signed on August 25th tasked Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth with creating specialized National Guard units for public order issues. Trump has floated crime crackdowns in crime-plagued cities like Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson pushed back on the idea, calling it unconstitutional on CNN.
What the president is proposing is a military occupation of the city of Chicago.
Trump also signed executive orders targeting flag burning and cashless bail this week, reinforcing his administration's push on law and order.
If you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail.
The Supreme Court ruled in 1989 that flag burning is protected under the First Amendment. On Thursday, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook filed a lawsuit against President Trump. Cook is challenging his attempt to fire her from the Board of Governors over allegations of mortgage fraud. President Trump fired Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Susan Menarez. The White House says she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again.
The secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
Lawyers for Menarez say she was targeted for refusing to rubber stamp what they called unscientific directives. The Trump administration said the energy agenda is working, as gas prices this Labor Day will be the lowest in half a decade.
These savings at the pump are giving everyday American families more room in their budgets at the end of each month.
And in trade news, tariffs on Indian goods doubled to 50% this week as the Trump administration reacts to India buying Russian oil. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
An appeals court struck down most of President Trump's tariffs on Friday, ruling them illegal. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in D.C. ruled that Trump overstepped his authority when he used emergency powers to impose his reciprocal tariffs, as well as separate tariffs imposed against China, Canada, and Mexico. The court ruled that the law Trump relied on The International Emergency Economic Powers Act does not authorize tariffs. That authority rests with Congress. The decision does not affect Trump's tariffs issued under other legal authorities, such as the tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Friday's ruling is widely expected to be appealed to the Supreme Court. President Trump responded on Truth Social saying, quote, "All tariffs are still in effect." He also suggested he would appeal the decision. President Trump proposed canceling $4.9 billion in appropriated funds for foreign aid spending. He's using a maneuver that could bypass Congress. Joining us now to discuss is Jeffrey Bloodworth, professor for modern American political history at Gagnon University. Good afternoon, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for your time today. The first question I have is, does the president actually have the authority to use this, what is known as a pocket rescission?
Yeah, I mean, this is a post-Watergate reform passed in 1974. And it gives, we're bumping up again against the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th. And the president has the power to rescind funding for particular programs during this window of time towards the end of the fiscal year. Now, Congress is going to be back in session, and Congress can act to restore this funding. But Republicans control both houses. So this is, widely considered a constitutional measure, though it has been Ronald Reagan was the last president to use this power.
Do you think this potentially is just a one-off, or maybe this will set a precedent for future presidents to use it more often? What do you think?
Oh, I think this is going to augur the future. It's clearly constitutional. Look, if the other party controls Congress, it sets a nice political battle of the president's choosing. Or if you control the Congress, then, essentially the president will most likely be successful in rescinding that funding. I mean, it's a symbolic act. I mean, $5 billion is a lot of money to most Americans. In the realm of the federal budget, it's a trickle. But I think this will probably become a more normal part of American political life. I don't think we're going to wait for 50 years for the next president to use this power, as we have seen between Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump using this particular maneuver.
And as well, Professor, I'm sure many people, or some at least, are thinking about this and wondering. I'm wondering myself as well, does this in any way, shape, or form weaken Congress's ability, spending authority?
Congress's weakened spending authority is something that Congress can reassert at any time. It's in the Constitution. Congress has the power of the purse. And if Congress wants to reassert its authority against the executive, they have every ability to do so. I mean, this has been a centuries-long march of the executive growing in power and Congress handing it over to the executive. At any moment, Congress can reassert its power of the purse over the president. I think Republicans see themselves as facing the same political fate with the president in the upcoming midterms, and so they won't do so. But this is not, Congress kind of losing power at the hands of the president. This is Congress losing its power out of its own choosing, and this has been decades in the making. And it's something that Democratic and Republican members of Congress have played a role in.
Okay, is there any concern in your mind that potentially the move of cutting foreign aid spending, is this going to impact U.S. influence abroad?
Oh, most certainly. Look, I mean, for decades, foreign aid has probably been the least popular item in any federal budget amongst Republicans and Democrats. But we spend a paltry amount of our federal budget overseas, but it does give the U.S. influence and soft power abroad. I mean, I think that is clear. Now, not every federal program abroad is as effective as every other federal program abroad. But once you start slashing billions of dollars from foreign aid programs, look, you're going to see American influence wane. Look, this is something that Donald Trump campaigned on and was elected on. I don't think this is something that the average American voter is going to vote on. America's losing influence abroad. I think that is largely politically popular. But I don't think it redounds to America's overall national security benefit to lose influence across the globe. I mean, this is how presidents balance what's politically popular and what's in our national interest. Trump campaigned on this, and he's following through. I think this is his midterm strategy of promises made, promises kept, which is a different question than how does this play to our national security benefit in the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, okay, Professor, it seems like we're out of time. I wanted to explore this topic a bit more, but thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
And at his cabinet meeting, the latest one, President Trump asked NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao to share her story of being mugged in Washington, D.C. The mugging happened at gunpoint in broad daylight right outside her capital city apartment, and she was on the program Capitol Report to recount what unfolded at the cabinet meeting. Take a look.
You probably figured that he's going to pull the trigger because these are animals that don't know what the hell. They couldn't care less. The pulling the trigger to him is a very minor event, and I'm sure he's done it before. So how did you, and you did refuse to give it, which would probably, maybe somebody would say that was not the right decision, right? Right. But you refused, but I understand that. So, and then he hit you real hard. Yes. It's really amazing that you weren't shot. That was.
And we do have our own Iris Tao in studio with us right now to discuss both her experience as well as what transpired today at that cabinet meeting. Iris, walk us through sort of today's events. The president asked you about your experience. It's really quite amazing. He referenced the fact that you did not immediately give up your items, which we all thought when we heard about it, we were scared initially for your safety, but then did question that decision. Tell us what happened.
So first of all, to your point, I actually did tell the whole cabinet that my friends did call me crazy, and that's why they laughed actually at the moment, though you couldn't hear it. But right, it was after President Trump started his crackdown and then prompted me to write an op-ed published in the Epoch Times about my experience as a White House reporter around 2 years ago getting robbed at gunpoint, and the guy used the butt of his handgun to basically pistol whip me in the face before running away. And after my op-ed was published, the White House press secretary retweeted it and asked everyone to read it. And the president apparently has read it as well. And that's why today he brought up my story, which I really appreciate, because having had that experience, which left me and my family deeply traumatized, as I told the president today, even till this day, I don't dare to walk in the streets of D.C. at night alone. Still, I still Uber home, and it's caused a big change in perspective for me and my family. So, as I shared today with the whole room, I'm grateful actually for the opportunity to share my story, and hopefully it's going to shed light on more cases like these, victims, not just in DC, but across the country, who have their stories untold or who have experienced something like this and are now hopeful to see real changes.
And to your point, this incident that took place with you is in a relatively lower crime. High crime is everywhere in DC, but there are a lot of people whose stories aren't told or aren't addressed. You did ask the president today about how the long-term sustainability, once crime is brought down, what efforts will be put in place to make sure that it stays that way.
Right. So I asked the president, as a victim like myself, we are worried about long-term sustainability. And he called it a great question and told me that, one, they want to have the National Guard troops stay in D.C. for as long as they can, which is beyond 30 days. And if he needs, he says he would call for an extension of the national emergency, which would potentially allow for even longer period for them to stay. But beyond that, when I asked him what's the solution for not only months, but years to come, he did mention that right now they're putting a lot of the criminals in prison and also deporting a lot of the illegal aliens who are committing crimes. So he says that in part will hopefully prevent them from coming back into the streets and committing crimes. But also he says the administration is working very closely with the police department. And he says if they ever see a spike in crime again in DC, they will immediately strengthen their presence and bring National Guard troops back in. And of course, there's also accountability. Today, we just heard the president seeking potential capital punishment for people who commit murder in DC. And even for my case, fortunately, I didn't get got shot. The guy pistol whipped me but didn't open fire, but he even asked the Attorney General Pam Bondi to actually look into my own specific case to find the person, and here's what he told the room. Let's take a look.
Did they ever capture these people, by the way?
I kept calling, but I haven't heard back about this guy.
It'd be really great if you could maybe give the information. She's very good at capturing people, you know? She's very good. If you could give that information to Pam, would be great. Would you do that?
Yes.
Wouldn't you'd love to see them? I would assume you'd like to see them captured.
For sure.
You can't. You just can't.
For years.
Yeah, take a good look at that.
So whoever robbed me, if you're watching TV, be careful.
Well, I'm sure you'd love to see a resolution to your case. I know we would. NTD's Iris Tao, please stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you more frequently at the White House.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, President Trump cancels Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail and hints at a 2026 Republican National Convention. We break down the implications with a panel of political experts right after this.
The Design Studio by Mathis Home is where your home decorating dreams come to life, with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Right now, get the lowest prices of the year on top designer brands like Hooker, Universal, and Bernhard. We're the only place with designer furniture in stock, with complimentary delivery and design services. For the latest in luxury and style, visit us now for exclusive discounts. Now through Labor Day, only at the Design Studio by Mathis Home.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 kids face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for kids facing hunger this summer.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay." And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of children facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org. Working together, we can end hunger in America.
President Trump has canceled former Vice President Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection. He's also hinting at holding the Republican National Convention in 2026 instead of 2028, potentially breaking from tradition. Earlier this week, I spoke with political strategist Gerard Filitti and former Oregon Democratic gubernatorial candidate George Carrillo about these updates. Good to see you both, and thank you for coming on the show today. Gerard, I'll start with you. So vice presidents typically have detail for 6 months, right? And former President Biden extended to 18 months. It's not the first time Trump has revoked Secret Service detail for someone. What are your thoughts on the overall situation, Gerard?
Well, I think my overall thoughts are we don't really know what the basis for the revocation or the extension was, for that matter. We don't know why President Biden extended the protection. We don't know whether there were any imminent or credible threats against Kamala Harris that entitled him to do so or enabled him to do so. So quite frankly, absent that knowledge, absent knowing that there is a threat against Kamala Harris, there's no reason for protection to continue beyond the 6 months that she is entitled to under law. So this seems a story that is more geared towards a political agenda than a legal one.
So George, Harris's advisor thanked the federal agency for its service. What are your thoughts on the overall situation as well, from perhaps a security point of view? Because the move comes as she's about to set off on a book tour, right, for her memoir.
Right. Well, it's pretty clear. Her detail was supposed to end exactly like what my colleague said. We don't know why it was extended. I think what would help in these conversations, as the American people are trying to figure out why the White House canceled it or why there was maybe a credible threat before during Biden's administration, I think there just needs to be more transparency. So that way we can know why, and we can rule out political narratives that favor one side or the other. Right now, she's going on her book tour. It's great that they're exiting, the Secret Service detail with dignity and respect. But I think some more transparency is warranted here.
Okay, now I want to move on to Trump's suggestion for a Republican National Convention in 2026. Gerard, how significant is this? What are the advantages? What are the risks?
It's very significant, and it's a huge and bold move by President Trump. We have not seen mid-cycle conventions or large gatherings since the 1980s, I believe, since Ronald Reagan won an election in a landslide. We have seen these before. It's a great opportunity for the party in power, in this case the Republican Party, to showcase their achievements midterm through a presidency and convince voters that would normally tend to vote for the other side, as we see happening in election cycles, to stick with the party in power. So this is a very smart move by President Trump. He wants to see this as an opportunity to regain momentum and not bleed seats that the Democrats might otherwise capture next year.
George, what's your angle?
So I think that this is a really good strategy for the Republican Party. We all know that in a midterm election, when there's not a president running for office, voter turnout is generally very low. And so trying to ignite the base and have people show up is a good strategy. I think that Democrats will do the same thing. They're going to try to ignite their base, have their own convention. The downfall that I can see here for the president is that with some of his policies, if they don't come in a positive light over this next year, this next calendar year, this can really hurt. And Democrats are really going to seize that moment to really highlight some of the failures of the administration if it doesn't go his way.
Gerard, how does this idea compare to traditional midterm election strategies? Do you see this, mid-cycle RNC having a large impact on the outcome of the midterms?
Well, that's certainly their hope. What I think that we can expect now that this is an idea that's gaining steam is that this is sort of foretelling that the midterm elections will probably be the biggest, costliest midterm elections that we've seen in modern history. I think this speaks to both parties investing heavily in candidates and issues in this upcoming cycle, more so than in previous years. So this really will change the dynamic. It is all about voter turnout, and it is all about putting forward an agenda and a progressive idea for where each party wants to go. So this is not something we've seen in recent times, but it's maintaining the political cycle at full speed, which is not something we're used to.
So, George, how does this compare to traditional midterm election strategies?
Well, I think that, like I said previously, there typically is a low voter turnout ratio. The party really doesn't spend a lot of money on nationwide campaign to rally up their bases. But I think that right now the Republican Party, and I believe that President Trump feels vulnerable right now. I think he believes that he is going to lose the House and the Senate. And so, he is a master of promoting, right? He does a very good job of doing that. But right now, I think he sees that there's some vulnerability here. And so the Democratic Party, I think, is going to take advantage of that vulnerability, and they're going to mirror it, and they're going to come down and really talk about what Americans are talking about today and really highlighting some of the policy failures within his tariff policy, really focusing on the Hispanic community and how, recent polling showing that there is about 70% of buyer's remorse from Hispanics who voted for this Congress and for this president. And what their immigration tactics have unfolded is that they're really not focusing too much on the criminal element. They're chasing after a number instead of keeping our communities safe. And Democratic Party is going to expose all of that. And this is they're going to be taking it directly off of Trump's playbook and play it against him during this midterm election.
Gerard, are there vulnerabilities in the Republican Party as you see it?
Well, there certainly are, and I think that my colleague has outlined them very well, but I also think that there's an opportunity for Republicans, and I say this counterintuitively, to pick up seats. I think Donald Trump can go into this pushing the party and saying, look at all the lawfare that's being waged against me. We need you to go out to vote because we need better judges. We need you to vote for congressmen who will enact laws that support what I'm doing so it won't be undone by the next president. So I do see more opportunity for Trump than downside risk, because normally in any mid-cycle, the downside risk is already there.
So do you see, George, do you see potentially Democrats regaining Congress after 2026?
Absolutely. I definitely believe so. I think that some of the policies I can agree with President Trump and where he's trying to take the nation, but then there's other policies that Americans are just not in tune with, and they're looking for Congress to be that checks and balance. And right now we don't have that. And so now when you see about, police powers, how they're being enacted, how the National Guard is being used, how the Marine Corps is being used, there's many of us, especially like for myself as a disabled veteran, we don't like those powers being taken advantage of. We sacrificed a lot to defend the Constitution of the United States. And when that is being, gerrymandered by state elections, taking power away from the voter, these are all things that I think that the president is very vulnerable on, and people are going to want a system, a government that has checks and balances, and not just this one way of doing things, and really no one being able to slow the bus down, even when there's a policy that is not good for the U.S. Economy and for its voters.
Gerard, former DNC chair Jamie Harrison says that Democrats could see a comeback in 2026, similar to that of 2006. He's citing things like the big, beautiful bill weighing down Republicans. What do you see?
Well, it's certainly possible, but at the end of the day, I think in the next election cycle, we'll see exactly what we did this last time. It'll be about the economy. It'll be about public safety. It'll be how people feel. Yes, we all have these intellectual concerns about the direction that we're going in, but when people go into that ballot box and check that mark next to their candidate, a lot of times it's an emotional response. A lot of times it's triggered by the very simple, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago or 4 years ago? So if the economy stalls, if we're having a worse economy, if we go into a recession, absolutely the Democrats will pick up seats. If not, I don't see it as a massive swing like it was in 2006.
George, what do we know about voter perception of the big, beautiful bill, and how might it influence the midterms?
So I don't think that the big, beautiful bill is going to really affect the 2026 midterm. I think it's going to affect the election in 2028 for presidential, because some of the things like the reduction in Medicaid funding and in SNAP benefits, that actually doesn't take effect until after the midterm. And so I agree, voting is very emotional. And I think that the way the policies have been written and when they're going to be enacted, it'll be interesting to see how voters feel. And that's why I believe that the Hispanic community, one, they elected this Congress and this presidency. And what's affecting us today is mass deportation and the treatment of our people and of our family members. And so it really may not come down to the big, beautiful bill. I think it will definitely come down to Trump's immigration policy and his enforcement tactics. That's really going to hit the midterm.
Okay, Gerard, what are your final thoughts, perhaps for 2026 or even 2028?
Well, I think it's going to be an exciting 3.5 years of a lot of campaigning that we're already seeing now. I think the Democrats still need to find that mantle of leadership. I don't know that Gavin Newsom is it, despite the attention that he's getting now. So I think it'll be very interesting to see who steps forward for the Democrats and even for the Republicans. Will it be J.D. Vance picking up that mantle, or will it be someone else? A lot to find out.
Okay, well, good discussion today. Thank you both, Gerard, George. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
When we come back, from homelessness and time behind bars to a leading multi-million-dollar tax firm, Scott Curley now inspires others to overcome their own obstacles. He shares his story with us after the break.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life.
And we just had a new baby. And then all of a sudden, within a day or two, she's on life support and fighting for her life.
And I knew something was pretty wrong. A little less than a week after I came home, I couldn't breathe. That's when we decided to go to the hospital. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
This could not happen without monthly donations from friends like you. Your sustained support helps fund life-saving research that leads to medical breakthroughs, like those that gave Jen a second chance at life. Heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and we urgently need your help to save lives. Go to helpheart.org or call now to become a monthly donor today. Your donation of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, will make a difference through prevention, early detection, treatments, and cures that help save lives.
I am very thankful for the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children.
Please go to helpheart.org or call now with your donation of just $19 a month. Join our community of monthly donors, and you'll get this limited edition t-shirt you could wear to show you're helping save lives.
It's hard to imagine that a mom can die from pregnancy-induced heart failure, but thousands die every year. That's why your support is so urgently needed.
So please, call or go to helpheart.org now to help save lives.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
How strong is South Korea's commitment to its alliance with the U.S., and what's at stake as Washington ramps up shipbuilding? Earlier this week, NTD's Steve Lance spoke with the chair for Asia-Pacific Security at the Hudson Institute on what Seoul stands to gain.
Now, the South Korean president discussed relations with North Korea. I want to play a clip for you.
While you were in office during your first term, the tension across the Korean peninsula had been stable. But during the hiatus in which you were not, North Korea has since further developed its nuclear and missile capabilities, leading to the deterioration of the stability you had helped to help.
So how should we be interpreting this? Is he simply complimenting Trump for negotiation purposes, or is he asking for Trump to take a certain stance when it comes to North Korea?
Well, he's both pursuing the policy he wishes to pursue. That is, the Democratic Party of Korea wants better relations with North Korea, and they want to pursue confidence-building measures and tension reduction. At the same time, he's essentially egging on President Trump to do what he did during his first term, which was to reach out and make a historic summit meeting that went well in Singapore in 2018. But when they went to Hanoi in February of 2019, they weren't able to reach a deal because, in reality, North Korea didn't want to make the kind of compromises on its nuclear program that we were willing to sort of deal with. And there's still that big gap with North Korea. So unfortunately, while both President Trump and President Lee Jae-myung want to be peacemakers with North Korea, it's not clear that North Korea wants to be a peacemaker with us.
You wouldn't probably realize watching today's Oval Office bilateral meeting, but there's a lot of controversy in South Korea when it comes to its own domestic politics. While President Lee is in the United States, at the same time, he has a special delegation in China. Just yesterday, South Korea agreed to boost economic cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party. Is the South Korean president being sincere in his comments to President Trump today? And can South Korea ultimately walk the line between the U.S. and China?
Well, we don't know if they can walk the line. That is a big question. What we can say is that President Lee Jae-myung has just begun essentially to define his presidency. He was elected in this special election in the beginning of June. He's now met with Prime Minister Ishiba in Japan, and now finally an inaugural summit with President Trump. In the end of October, he's going to be hosting those same leaders and others at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit that South Korea is hosting. So between now and the end of October, we'll go a long way to understanding how will the Lee Jae-myung liberal administration try to balance the need for a strong modern security alliance on the one hand with the reality that he wants closer relations with China, the United States. And President Trump today said he's going to have good relations with China. But we also know that the competition between the United States and China is intensifying despite that. So you're asking the right question. We don't know the answer yet. We are dealing with a very liberal government that has a more liberal outlook on how to deal with China. It's not all black and white, though, because he's pragmatic and he knows, and South Koreans are very skeptical about Chinese pressure, and they know they're vulnerable. So they need the United States alliance. They want to work with Japan, which is historically a very positive step now. But how will they manage China? Will they be harsh enough? Lee Jae-myung did say one thing tonight in his speech that I thought was interesting. He did commit to the fact that working with Japan and the United States, South Korea would help protect and deter the conflict in the Indo-Pacific region. That's not quite saying he's willing to say South Korea will help on China contingencies, but it is essentially giving cover for that demand from the United States that they do more to shoulder burdens for dealing with China and not just North Korea.
Now, speaking of that pressure, when you're thinking in terms of great power competition, the United States and China, South Korea being so close to China, the economy is very intertwined, many South Korean businesses doing business inside of China. I want to talk about the CCP's influence inside of South Korea. In addition to pro-China foreign policy, the current president has also taken action to suppress critics of the CCP in South Korea. What can we learn from how China, the Communist Party, has infiltrated itself into South Korean politics?
Well, even reading today's New York Times about how the Chinese have insinuated themselves into U.S. politics, it's worth remembering that the Communist Party of China has made a business out of making sure that it can manipulate politics, both domestically and abroad. And obviously being a close neighbor and doing so much business with South Korea makes South Korea vulnerable. The South Koreans are aware of this, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, and they're working with us closely to make sure that they can kind of root out Chinese intrusions as well as North Korean and other intrusions. But on the politics locally, the domestic politics give more space for cooperation with China, and that means they're inviting in elements of the Chinese Communist Party, whether they know it or not, whether it's witting or unwitting. And so the United States has to be a little more wary of dealing with a liberal government in terms of how it's going to really treat China. But South Koreans are still very strong nationalists. Even the liberals are very strong nationalists. They want to protect Korea. So we have something to work with on South Korea, and that's why in previous liberal governments of South Korea, the United States and conservative governments of the United States have been able to work with South Korean governments, whether they're liberal or conservative. So I'm still hopeful that we can do more good, but we still have to be wary of some of the intrusions that you're talking about.
Patrick Cronin, appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Next is a story about overcoming obstacles. Scott Curley was homeless and spent years in prison early in life. But he didn't let that stop him from becoming the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tax firm with over 100 employees. He now speaks to others about his life path. NTD's Sean Marshall shares his story.
From homeless criminal to CEO of one of the fastest growing financial companies in the U.S., Scott Curley's story might just give you some ambition to get past any hurdles you've been running into.
If me as an average intelligence guy with 9 felonies in my background, homeless, 25 years of drug addiction in the streets, can achieve quote unquote business success and build a $50 million company out of $2,000, anybody can.
But how did he do it? How did he get from criminal to CEO? Well, he had to start somewhere, and that somewhere was reading books in prison.
From that moment, even though I knew I was looking at a long time, I did not know when I was getting out, but I knew some way I would get out one day. And so I spent the entire year, those years, just reading everything I could. I read over 1,000 books. I read the policies on the prison doors when there was nothing to read. I read the Bible. I read the dictionary. I read anything that I could, and I just committed to making this time that I had to do worth something and not be a waste. And so that was really the pivotal point.
But not just books. He had to follow the right mental paths out of the darkness. With all those books read and knowledge gained, Curley ended up writing a best-selling book and became a public speaker.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Absolution, The Dark Path to Light that is exactly about that process, because it's been, I don't find anything special about it, but apparently the way it happened, folks think that it's extraordinary. We simply did it by doing, just steadily moving forward and not seeing the mistakes as being ending points, just seeing them as being learning opportunities. And
because of Curley's proven track record of success as the co-CEO of Finish Line Tax Solutions, Curley is growing the company into one of the largest tax resolution companies in the country. I asked Curley if there was anything he could share with other business people.
Not to be cliche, but I have to add this. That success is guaranteed for all of us in business, in personal lives. And the reason I say that, it's guaranteed because 100% of opportunities will not be denied us 100% of the time. It's mathematically impossible. 100% of doors will not be closed 100% of the time. It's mathematically impossible.
Curley's future plans are to turn his event, CommitCon, into a national movement and travel it around the country to give entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and people who have been counted out an opportunity to see that they still have options and opportunities. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Now, what if I told you moving your eyes back and forth was part of an effective treatment for PTSD? Vital Signs Brendon Fallon shares insights from a leading clinical psychologist on eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, or EMDR, right after this break.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Welcome back to NTD Today. I'm joined in studio by NTD health correspondent and host of Vital Signs, Brendon Fallon. Vital Signs offers natural and nutritional ways of optimizing our health. Brendon, it's always great to see you.
Great to see you, Don.
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Glad it's the weekend and long weekend for that. So what do you have for us today?
Today, I'm here to talk about a very hopeful treatment for those people who are suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, or who have family members suffering from this. This treatment, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, it's been around for a number of decades, and it's effective to the point that the U.S. Departments for Defense and the U.S. Departments for Veteran Affairs class it as a best practice and a treatment of choice. And I had the honor of speaking to a clinical psychologist, Dr. Marilyn Luber, who's been doing this for decades. She's an advanced practitioner in this method. And she was giving examples of patients that she's treated with this and giving insights on how it actually works.
All right, let's take a look.
He came in for originally trauma from the war. When he came back home from Vietnam, his mother was sent a carton of dog food because that's what you feed baby butchers. That was the welcome that Vietnam vets were getting back at that time. And so there were memories like that. And we targeted some of the worst ones. One was when he was with his commanding officer and there was a child and he was running to get the child and his commanding officer stopped him. You know, he felt so terrible because the child exploded. Because very often the kids were used to kill American soldiers. And so we've processed through a number of these things. And what it went back to, because EMDR is always about going back to the original root of where the problem started. And, you know, a lot of people did come back from places like Vietnam or World War II, and they did okay. And that may have been because they didn't have trauma that they were building up. So this person had an alcoholic father who sexually abused him. And so that material came up as we did the EMDR work. And so you get a chance to help clear out all of the old material, focus on the present triggers, and then generalize things by going into the future. It's a very powerful treatment.
So there was one word that the doctor mentioned, and that's EMDR. What is that exactly?
Yeah, this EMDR, it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And to understand it a little bit, you can break down those terms. For one, it's not necessarily just eye movement, but any form of bilateral stimulation, or different forms can be used. Another form is shoulder tapping, where the therapist will tap the left and right shoulders to also induce this bilateral stimulation. And actually, viewers can have a look on YouTube, and you'll see a video of Prince Harry actually experiencing EMDR with a therapist. eye movement desensitization. So it's a desensitization of that kind of extreme, a very severe emotional response to the trauma, and reprocessing, taking that memory and kind of neutralizing the intensity of that. That's just a very nutshell explanation of it.
Very fascinating. And I do believe you brought with you another clip. Would you like to elaborate on what that is?
Sure. I invited Dr. Luber just to explain how she does this process with a patient. And she, using the example of the veteran she was just talking about, she goes through the initial steps that she will go through with a patient to do EMDR.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, it's activated.
Activated.
And it's activated in a certain way. We don't just say, bring up the memory. We say, what's the worst part of the memory? Take a photo. What's the negative belief you have about yourself? And usually that has something to do with responsibility, safety, choice, or connection, or belonging. For him, something like I'm going to die, or I'm dying, or I'm dead, I think, something like that. And the positive is I'm alive. Okay? And so then the other thing that we do is we always are evaluating our work. So we have a validity of cognition, which tests where we are on the scale. How true is I'm alive feeling to you on a scale of 1 to 7, where 7 is true and 1 is I'm dying or I'm dead. And so we're always checking our work. So it's one of the ways to get evidence-based work in terms of whether there's efficacy or not. So after we get that, right, then we ask for the emotion. We ask for a positive cognition, because one of the things that Francine also put into this mix is she wanted to stimulate the positive neural networks. And even though the person might not be there at that particular time, you're pointing the direction of where to go. And so he said, I'm alive. Right, so even though that had not been in his consciousness, perhaps, now it is. We then ask on a 0 to 10 scale how disturbing the whole gestalt is, right? How disturbing the whole memory is. 10 is the most disturbing, 0 is no disturbance or calm in your body. And he said it was a 9. Okay, and then now we're getting ready. The person is getting more into the emotion. We anchor it in the body. Where is it in the body? He felt it in his gut. And we say, okay, bring all of that together. Bring up the image, the negative words that you're saying to yourself, what you're feeling and where you're feeling. And then we do the bilateral stimulation. And so that's where we get the results.
That's very interesting what the doctor is describing. We just have a bit of time left. I'm wondering if you have anything else to add.
Sure, Donna. This is it's quite prevalent. Like PTSD, I think it's over 6% of Americans will experience this at some point in their lives. And coming out of the pandemic and the anxiety associated with that, it's quite a common experience. And I think that the value of this therapy, part of it is that it really recognizes it's not just brain chemistry that is causing this condition, and the fact that it's looking at memory, it's looking at cognition, and it's bringing in this physical sensation. It's honoring the fact that it's a kind of whole body experience, and perhaps that's why the results are seen to such a degree with this. Our viewers can find out more about the process by watching the full video.
Sure. Well, thank you for shedding some light on this, Brandon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
And to see that full Vital Signs interview with Dr. Luber, just go to your web browser and enter ept.ms/EMDR. Next, in Altadena, California, the charred trees from last January's Eden fire aren't going to waste. A local project is turning burned logs into lumber to help rebuild homes, preserving a piece of the community's past while shaping its future. Take a look.
This lot in LA is housing trees and logs that were charred by the Eden wildfire. The blaze scorched more than 14,000 acres of land in January and left the community of Altadena in ruins. But instead of being chipped or left to decompose, the trees are going to be repurposed to rebuild neighborhoods destroyed by the blaze. Jeff Perry is the founder of the Los Angeles-based company Angel City Lumber.
All of this and all going this way is all Altadena recovered tree logs. from removed trees during remediation. And these logs over here behind me are from the Angeles National Forest, obviously abutting Altadena. And all of these logs will be put back as lumber back into Altadena rebuilds.
Perry helped launch the Altadena Reciprocity Project, which aims to turn the city's damaged trees into usable lumber for things like flooring, molding, and door and window jambs. For some residents, the project is personal. Altadena homeowner Matthew Burrows, who said he and his family lost everything in the Eaton fire, described his old tree as part of the family.
I thought the best way to honor the tree and to honor its legacy was to preserve it in terms of using it in the future and in our home. Bringing that tree back into our lives, it'll just be a constant reminder of those beautiful days that were and the amazing future that it's gonna be.
The project could produce between 1 and 2 million board feet for the rebuilding efforts in Altadena. But there are some roadblocks. Perry needs more workers and money to make it happen.
We need funding. So there's about, I'll call it $300,000 to $400,000 that in infrastructure that we're going to need to get up and running quickly.
Coming up, are some protests really led by everyday citizens, or are participants being paid? Independent journalist Nate Friedman investigates the growing trend of paid protests in major U.S. cities and what it means for free speech. Stay with us. We're going to bring you that and more right after this break.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says, whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing.
What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results. And I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of Meaningful Beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing Targeted Treatment Duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.
Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
If you haven't tried Meaningful Beauty yet, this new offer is something you don't want to miss.
This special offer is not available in any store, so don't wait. Scan the code, call the number below, or go to meaningfulbeauty.com right now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, MyPillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says, whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now,
Cindy
Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Don Ma. Here are today's top stories. From a marathon cabinet meeting to crime crackdowns and a CDC shakeup, President Trump made headlines all week long. We bring you the highlights from the White House. Are some protests really led by everyday citizens, or are participants being paid? Independent journalist Nate Friedman investigates the growing trend of paid protests in major U.S. cities and what it means for free speech. From homelessness and time behind bars to a leading multi-million-dollar tax firm, Scott Curley now inspires others to overcome their own obstacles. He shares us with his story. From a grinning stone face in Scotland to a runaway horse in Indiana and a rare left-shelled snail in New Zealand, we bring you some of the weirdest headlines from around the world.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thanks for staying with us. It's been a week of major decisions from President Trump. From a marathon cabinet meeting to tougher crime measures and changes at the CDC. NTD's Daniel Monahan breaks down the top White House moments in this week's review.
President Trump hosted a 3-hour-plus cabinet meeting at the White House, described as the longest public White House event ever.
The country is doing well. We're respected all over the world like never before, probably.
At the cabinet meeting, NTD's Iris Tao thanked President Trump for his efforts to make D.C. safe and shared her own traumatic story about being pistol whipped in the city in an attempted robbery.
If he had shot me, I could have died right there in the middle of nowhere without my families or my friends knowing.
Trump signaled a softening on the issue of Chinese students studying in the U.S., indicating that visas could be given for up to 600,000 Chinese students.
I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here. Now, with that, we check and we're careful and we see who's there. And
in May, Secretary of State Rubio said the U.S. would aggressively remove visas of Chinese students.
President Trump announced that his administration would seek the death penalty in murder cases in D.C.
If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty.
National Guard members began carrying sidearms in D.C. this week. Mayor Muriel Bowser said at a Wednesday press conference that carjackings in the nation's capital are down 87% since the federal law enforcement takeover.
We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer.
An executive order signed on August 25th tasked Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth with creating specialized National Guard units for public order issues. Trump has floated crime crackdowns in crime-plagued cities like Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson pushed back on the idea, calling it unconstitutional on CNN.
What the president is proposing is a military occupation of the city of Chicago.
Trump also signed executive orders targeting flag burning and cashless bail this week, reinforcing his administration's push on law and order.
If you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail.
The Supreme Court ruled in 1989 that flag burning is protected under the First Amendment. On Thursday, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook filed a lawsuit against President Trump. Cook is challenging his attempt to fire her from the Board of Governors over allegations of mortgage fraud. President Trump fired Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Susan Menarez. The White House says she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again.
The secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
Lawyers for Menarez say she was targeted for refusing to rubber stamp what they called unscientific directives. The Trump administration said the energy agenda is working, as gas prices this Labor Day will be the lowest in half a decade.
These savings at the pump are giving everyday American families more room in their budgets at the end of each month.
And in trade news, tariffs on Indian goods doubled to 50% this week as the Trump administration reacts to India buying Russian oil. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
When protesters become paid actors, who's really speaking? Independent journalist Nate Friedman has been investigating this growing trend in major U.S. cities like New York and Washington, D.C. NTD's Tiffany Meyer sat down with him to uncover who's behind these paid protests and what's really at stake. Take a look.
It seems lately more and more in the headlines are protests over all sorts of issues, but are these organic or are they paid for? Well, we have with us a very special guest. He's an independent journalist who's found out these are paid protesters. So, Nate Friedman, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So talk to us about, how you found out a lot of these are paid protesters. Did you go in there knowing this, or did you find this out organically?
No, I found it out organically, actually. So there was a big Tesla takedown protest in downtown New York City, and I was struck by how Elon was loved by the left prior to Trump winning. And I saw things switch on a dime, and not just against him, but calling him a Nazi. And as a Jew who had family who've died in the Holocaust, I took that to heart. So I wanted to know what was really going on. So when I went there, I immediately was confronted by a woman who had a troll sign and just followed me. So she looked to have a picture of me on her phone as one of the people sort of that they have to ensure that can't ask questions there, which is pretty crazy. And then I was trying to do any kind of interviews I could, and more protesters would come in with big right-wing troll arrows, and they would have teammates that would beg the person that I'm trying to interview to not do the interview. So that's when I realized, okay, this is not organic.
Wow. So you were just going up to people being like, hey, why are you here? And people were, first off, they had a photo of you. So they knew who you were.
Yeah, they knew who I was. They were taking more photos to intimidate me, but she knew who I was right when I walked in.
That is crazy. Well, often it's been said to follow the money. So in this case, I assume you followed the money. Where did the money lead?
Sure. So for this particular protest, it was funded by Rise and Resist, which is funded by George Soros. And you can see that they take money through Act Blue. Act Blue is the Democrat fundraising platform. So People's Forum, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but also has to do with Rise and Resist, because People's Forum is also funding Rise and Resist as well. So, yeah.
That's a lot. Speaking of People's Forum, I know you've spoken to someone named David Chung a couple times. Speaking might be a bit generous since you was saying no comment, but we actually have a clip of you trying to speak to him. So let's actually roll that now, and then we'll have you comment.
Of course. Yo, what's up, David? See you again, man. You want to talk at all about the last video? No, I'm good. What did you think of it?
No comment.
Did I get anything wrong?
No comment.
You got no comment? Bro, they're paying you $80K a year to protest? Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Tell me if it's wrong.
No comment.
Do you think that, what's that? You gonna stop him from interviewing me? What do you want to prevent him to say?
Getting ready to march.
Right, so there's a couple different times you ran into him. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of money thrown around, the group he's with, but break down for us a bit. Who is he? What group is he with? And, why were you trying to talk to him?
So how I met David Chung was I was trying to speak to a protester who had a large flag that said, Allah is the only God. And I wanted to just have a conversation with him. This was after Trump struck Iran, and I wanted to know what was going on. So David Chung immediately comes over to prevent the interview. I didn't know who David was at the time, but he said, we're getting ready to march, which was blatantly saying that he's organizing everything. So looking into David, I saw that on the 990 forums of the People's Forum, he is getting paid $75,000 a year to protest. I asked him about $80K, hoping that he might correct me and say, no, it's actually $75K a year to protest, but I gave him a chance to speak his mind about it, but he refused.
That is insane. So $75,000 to protest.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
So he's with something called the People's Forum. Where is that kind of money coming from? Who's funding People's Forum?
Yeah, so Roy Neville Singham, who is a billionaire Marxist, which obviously, it's hard to believe, but yes, he sold his IT consulting firm to a private equity firm for $775 million, $785 million. And they had firms in China when he sold it to them, so there could be something there. Anyway, he's given over $20 million to the People's Forum through something called a donor advised fund, which is when you don't want people to know where the money's coming from, you put it through what was called the Goldman Sachs Philanthropy Fund. So it's not traced back to Roy Neville Singham. However, investigations absolutely revealed that it was. And then later on, People's Forum said, we'd like to thank our comrade, Roy Neville Singham, for supporting us. So, yeah.
They even use that language, comrade.
Yeah.
Insane. So Roy Neville Singham, there's a lot of reports about him, quite controversial, right? Ties to China, as you mentioned. Marxist billionaire. So the ideology of supporting socialism or eventually communism but with a lot of money to actually produce change, if you will, in that direction. So what is his goal with funding all of this protest?
Yeah, so you can see that at the People's Forum, they have a bookstore in downtown New York, and you can see that they've actually doing classes on Marxism and socialism, and they have a lot of young people that come in to learn about it, and they put a very positive spin on Marxism and socialism that historically has never worked. But young people come in through their hatred of Zionism, so they use Zionism as a springboard to get them into socialism and Marxism. So it's an effective way to do things, actually.
I want to dig into that a bit because we actually have another clip of you trying to talk to another protest, and then someone blocks that. So let's get into that and then see what's happening over there.
Muhammad. Hey man, how you been, buddy?
Hey.
Good to see you.
Oh, you took me last time interview, right?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
So that's really interesting because, again, it's that same line. We're about to march.
Right.
That
Yeah,
David
exactly.
was saying.
Yeah, it's very scripted. Yeah. So she's taken photos with the PSL, like as an advertisement for the Party of Socialism and Liberation, who the shooter of the DC embassy couple, the beautiful couple who was killed in DC, was killed by Elias Rodriguez, who was actually once was part of the Chicago chapter of the PSL. The PSL is funded by the People's Forum. Now, the PSL stands with North Korea. They stand for open borders and abolishing the police and ICE. So you can see that through this hatred of Zionism, they're able to get people on board with radical policies such as open borders and getting rid of the police.
I do want to dig into this because it's like, you know, often in the news, everyone's like, oh, First Amendment rights, of course, people should be expressing what they feel. But in terms of DC, there's been a lot of protests in the nation's capital since Trump 2.0. And there's actually a crowd rental company. It's called Crowds on Demand. And it was telling Fox DC that inquiries to basically rent a crowd are up 400% compared to last year. And they're saying that the vast majority of people in these protests in our nation's capital are getting paid. So these aren't just the voice of the people, right, actually trying to rise up in the streets. What have you seen in terms of that? Obviously not in DC, but in New York.
Yeah, so the truth is a lot of these protesters are not paid, but the organizers are paid. A lot of them are paid, but it doesn't mean that every single one is paid. There's thousands of protesters in New York City blocking the streets. But if we look at Victoria, for example, so the one who blocked my interview, so her working with the PSL, she came from Canada. So I think that maybe it's time to look at who we're bringing into this country and if they love our country, because maybe we should only bring in people into our country if they love our values.
We do see that this administration is trying to do a vetting process or the merit-based system, right? There's a couple of different questions, including morals, to your point. Now, in terms of, you know, a broader picture here with Singham, there's some questionable ties perhaps to China. We know he is Marxist sympathizing in that direction. Where do you see kind of communist China fitting in here, or does China fit in here?
Yeah, well, China's very, very difficult to see what they're doing. They're very good at hiding what their strategies are. But I can only say what I've seen firsthand, which is that this bookstore is teaching kids, young kids, whatever, 18, 19 years old, about socialism being a good thing. I mean, communism being a good thing. If we look at, a wise man once told me that if you want to see if communism works, socialism works, just look at the satellite view of South Korea and North Korea at night, and there's your answer. So, wish they would do that in those classes.
That's a good point. I want to continue that a bit because, you know, lately our institutions of higher education have been in the news a lot for anti-Semitism, blatant, you know, all these protests, uprisings, if you will, that you see on campus, to the point that there's more reports now suggesting that these are actually indoctrination centers, similar to, you know, teaching kids about Marxism. Have you seen stuff like that on college campuses, or suggesting that perhaps our institutions of higher education are more leaning towards indoctrination?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just colleges. The frightening thing is that it's happening to kids that are much, much younger. For example, I exposed a paid protester who teaches gender expansive youth, like 11-year-olds. So this is sick behavior, and it's tax funded as well. She's funded by New York City taxpayers, and there's also a Sadie Leadership scholarship that she's working with over the summer. So they're teaching these kids over the summer about gender ideology. So this is not just about colleges, it's going into elementary and middle school as well.
And given all this, right, the young kids, the colleges, the protests in the streets, what is the end goal here? Is there an end goal with all of this?
I think it's to destroy the West. I think it's to destroy everything that America stands for.
And given that, right, what have you seen in terms of, I don't know, crackdown, enforcement? Are you seeing more awareness on what's happening?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, some protester tried to attack me the other day, and there were a lot of police there, but I know I was told to not antagonize him, but I was not even talking to him. I was actually doing another interview. So I think that police are not exactly sure what to do with these protests because they're gotten so large. But so many of them are doing such good work. Like the NYPD is doing incredible work to actually make sure these things don't get out of control. But when they get out of control, it's very tough to deal with.
I do know in terms of the money trails, we've seen the new FBI Director Akash Patel saying that the FBI at least will be pursuing all the trails, connections to the money that's behind some of these protests, where it leads perhaps to China. Do you think more administration or offices in the administration will follow up on trying to find where that money is? And to your point, maybe even into immigration, who's coming over the borders?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the administration has done an impeccable job at this, and it's not just the administration, but Congress as well, because they have a House Oversight Committee that's looking into Singham. So real action looks to be being taken. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but these are all recent developments after Trump got into office, yeah.
And given all your experiences at protests, say someone who's on the street, maybe they're curious about what's happening at a protest. What's your advice to them? Like, what should they look out for to see if it is A, an organic protest, and B, if it turns violent, as it does in some cases? What's your advice to these people to stay safe?
Yeah, so be next to the police if you really feel like it's about to get very violent. The police are good, just stay next to them. And if you want to see whether, it's very organic, not very organic, look at the speakers, look at the huge signs with the organization's name on them. These signs are printed, it's organized. So that's what I would look for, the gigantic signs and the long line of speakers that they've booked for their protest.
Reports the BLM protests where you just see pallets of bricks that showed up, or very fancy signs, if you will.
Even in LA, they brought riot masks and whatnot.
It's not, these aren't cardboard signs, right? These took more than one night to make, for instance. I saw some jokes online where they're like the only ones who benefit are the ones selling the flags, because every day there's a new protest and who's buying the flags? Well, but with all the different areas covered today, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, I would just ask that people really wake up to what's going on. Over 20 protests, and just to look and see that these people are being paid, but a lot of these folks are getting indoctrinated through colleges, through things like the People's Forum, and to understand that Mamdani looks to be getting elected, and that means that young people are pro-socialism. Socialism has never worked, so it's time to wake up.
All right, well, Nate Friedman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, the U.S. Treasury Secretary says a third round of talks could take place as soon as late October. So where does the standoff stand? And what kind of leverage does each side have? Stay with us for some answers.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3 Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the next round of trade talks between the U.S. and China could happen as early as late October. The two sides have already met twice, and the tariff truce now runs through November. So where do things stand now, and what cards do both sides have to play? Here's more.
What happened if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly.
Earlier this week, President Trump said U.S. colleges would struggle without Chinese students. He suggested letting in 600,000 as part of trade talks with China. However, the White House later clarified there's been no change to the current U.S. student visa policy. The 600,000 number Trump mentioned isn't new visas. It covers the total student visas issued over 2 years. Currently, about 270,000 Chinese students are studying in the U.S. On top of that, the Department of Homeland Security is now proposing new limits. Foreign students and exchange visitors capped at 4 years, foreign journalists up to 8 months, but Chinese journalists are only allowed up to 90 days in the U.S. China quickly pushed back against U.S. plans to cut visa durations for students and media. This is one example of how student visas have become a potential bargaining chip in U.S.-China trade talks. The U.S. and China have already extended their tariff pause twice. U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods now top 55%, while Beijing's tariffs on American products hover around 32%. But with the new tariff truce set for November 10th, tensions are still rising. On the farm front, the American Soybean Association warns that China hasn't purchased any U.S. soybeans for the months ahead. The group is urging President Trump to make soybeans a priority in ongoing talks. On advanced chips, the White House recently lifted its ban on NVIDIA's H20 chip exports to China. Now, the tech giant is negotiating with Washington to sell a scaled-down version of its next-generation GPU chip to China. But CEO Jensen Huang says it will take time to finalize. On rare earths, President Trump this week warned any attempt to curb exports of rare earth magnets could trigger tariffs of up to 200% on Chinese imports. He cited U.S. restrictions on Boeing aircraft parts, saying 200 Chinese planes were grounded as a result. On denuclearization, China called Trump's proposal to involve Beijing in nuclear arms talks with Russia unreasonable and unrealistic. This weekend, China will host high-level leaders from India and Russia. Just days ago, Xi told the visiting Russian officials that China and Russia should unite to lead the global south, countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America that are seeking more influence on the world stage. Meanwhile, the U.S. is leaning on its allies to counter China's trade practices. In March, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent urged Canada and Mexico to match U.S. tariffs on China, creating a fortress North America against Chinese imports.
They have some cards. We have incredible cards, but I don't want to play those cards. If I played those cards, that would destroy China.
Future U.S.-Chinese negotiations are expected to go beyond tariffs. They'll also cover technology export controls, investment reviews, and purchases of sanctioned oil.
Beijing is rehearsing for one of its largest ever military parades, marking 80 years since the Japanese surrender that ended World War II. At the same time, the U.S.-led Western alliance is raising alarms over China's military activity in the Indo-Pacific. Chinese troops are set to march in Beijing this coming Wednesday. The showcase will be attended by Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping, along with leaders of some of the world's most heavily sanctioned nations. What message is China trying to send? To break it down, NTD's Tiffany Myers spoke with David Stilwell, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs.
General Stilwell, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Good to be back.
Now, China is going to be having a military parade to celebrate the end of World War II. This will be one of the biggest displays of their military advancements since the 2019 National Day Parade. First, what is the significance of Communist China celebrating the end of World War II, considering Communist China wasn't born yet at the time?
Well, I mean, there's a number of issues here. I guess first off, with the name Stilwell, I can point to the U.S. active participation in China-Burma India theater, specifically in southern China during World War II, and the amount of American blood shed in defense of the Chinese people. The PRC, the Chinese Communist Party, hates that line, that we were actually very helpful allies. And we actually supplied them with a lot of Lend-Lease equipment to help them defend themselves. Unfortunately, we know Beijing is going to focus on the opposite. They're going to focus on the adversary. And that is completely unhelpful. Dredging up that history will actually do one thing. It'll get Japan back if they were drifting. It'll get the Japanese to remember that what we're up against here. A communist government, an authoritarian government that is not eager to make peace in the region, but is doing the opposite, stirring up trouble, as we saw in South China Sea and elsewhere. So why the parade? The parade is to show the Chinese people that all that money that's spent and all the pain they're going through right now under Xi Jinping's leadership is not totally wasted. However, they also have news of two of their own ships crashing into each other on a completely botched intercept in the South China Sea. So Xi Jinping's got his work cut out for him.
Actually, you raise a good point about Japan, because Japan has been urging Asian and European countries not to attend this military parade. So in terms of who is or isn't attending, we have a few confirmed. For instance, Putin will be going. Now, another one of the confirmed attendees besides Putin is South Korea's National Assembly Speaker. What is that signaling, given that, President Trump just hosted South Korea's president at the White House at a summit?
It feels like one step forward, two steps back. We had the summit. The language came out of that was very helpful and positive. But then South Koreans recently said that they're not going to allow U.S. forces to operate out of the Republic of Korea in a Taiwan scenario. I find that very short-sighted, because if there is a dust-up in or near Taiwan, that's going to directly affect the Korean economy and security, right? Because suddenly all that energy travel, all the trade, all that stuff's going to shut down in the Western Pacific. And countries like Korea, surrounded by enemies, an economy entirely dependent on export-import, it's all going to freeze up. So I hope the Korean government looks at this problem a little more seriously. And whether or not they commit to allowing U.S. forces to operate off the peninsula, they should. In fact, they had better do that. They should at least take a neutral position on it. Vice coming out and saying we're not going to do that. The instincts of this government, the left-leaning let's make a deal with North Korea government, has typically been to trade on U.S. interests in order to get some kind of a deal with North Korea and or China.
In terms of who may or may not be going, India's Modi is still up in the air whether or not he will be in China for the first time in 7 years to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. But if he does attend this parade, what message would that be signaling?
It would be absolutely fascinating if he does go. One, China's hosting it. They have an ongoing border clash, up on the plateau. Two, the disagreement on what the future of Tibet looks like, whether the Dalai Lama is going to reincarnate. India sees it one way, China sees it another. And they're going to go at the invitation. Modi's threatening to go at the invitation and sit next to who? Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan and India are both parts of this bizarre multilateral organization that doesn't make a bit of sense, like BRICS, to anybody. And so they have to understand where their interests lie. They have to understand that the shared border, the Tibet question, all those things aren't going away. And as much as they try to play both sides, that's not going to work, especially with the current leadership in the U.S. And I hope that they think through this approach they're taking and reconsider.
A lot of eyes on this upcoming military parade in terms of the gear and technical advances that might be displayed. What will that tell us about, say, China's war readiness and any potential indicator of that potential Taiwanese invasion?
The government of the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, does not like transparency. Look, anybody who invests in anything Chinese, like Luckin Coffee, they get what they bought, which is they don't know. It's all up in the air. An example on an analog to showing military hardware is what they showed on DeepSeek. If you remember that, maybe 6 weeks ago, two months ago, they rolled out this brand new AI thing called DeepSeek, and they did it for like zero cost, and it's 2 times better than ChatGPT or others. None of that was true. But in the process, there are enough dummies who believed that narrative that we dumped $1 trillion in value off NASDAQ. That may have been the entire point, right? That may have been an economic attack, but they used the information to get people who don't understand the wisdom of distrust and verify before you go acting on Chinese government knowledge and information. And I do think that applies in the military. Again, you saw a Chinese Navy ship and a Chinese Coast Guard ship couldn't even manage the simplest of intercepts and deconfliction between, two folks on the same side, crashing into each other, killing possibly 4 Coast Guard crew members, and great embarrassment to Xi Jinping. I'm not saying we shouldn't prepare for this threat, not at all. I mean, they could get better in the next 5 to 10 years. They could be very good right now. We don't know. All I'm saying is we should be aware of the limitations and the obvious indications that they're not quite as good as they say. Again, the message to me is primarily domestic, is to focus the Chinese people on an enemy. We talked about Korea. When a leftist leader, a left-leaning leader, starts seeing numbers taking a drop in the polls, the simplest solution is to go kick Japan and talk about the 1905 to 1945 occupation. And the PRC does that too. Focus on an external threat to distract people from the internal failings of the Chinese Communist Party.
For General Stilwell, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
Coming up, U.S. health and education officials are urging medical schools to teach nutrition to future doctors. We speak with dietitian Cindy Chan Phillips about why this move could impact patient care. Stay tuned.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hardworking neighbors are facing a hunger crisis. Many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America, not just a name, but an action. Working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community. And demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Get Labor Day deals and save on everything for your home. They have hundreds of sofas and sectionals with styles you love at unbeatable prices, and they're the only place with top name recliners starting at just $199. Check out the latest looks in bedrooms and dining rooms and save big. Plus, you don't have to wait. They're all in stock with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out. These Labor Day deals are happening now in every department at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Education Secretary Linda McMahon are calling on medical schools to provide nutrition education to students. Joining us now to discuss is Cindy Chan Phillips, registered dietitian and nutritionist. Good afternoon, Cindy. Good to have you back again. Can I ask you, what was going through your mind when you first heard about this? And do you think medical students right now receive enough nutrition education?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here, Dawn. It's music to my ears. I think this is very important. Now, listen, one of the stated goals for Health and Human Services is to reduce chronic diseases in America. 2/3 of Americans are living with one or more chronic diseases. And I think every one of us either know somebody or we ourselves are living with chronic diseases. But the problem is happening to younger and younger population. 1 in 3 children have 1 or more chronic diseases. So it is crucial that the conversation about diet and lifestyle happen sooner in the exam room. Now, here's the thing too. When you have more education, it gives the doctors more confidence to raise this very important diet conversation. I remember one morning I was giving a nutrition workshop to a group of medical doctors, including residents. And at the end of the workshop, one of the young residents came up to me and said, Cindy, a mother asked me about what is the best diet for her child. I don't know what to tell her. Listen, I totally understand that, right? When you have only on the average 1.2 hours of nutrition education per year in a medical school, you need to have more nutrition education to feel more confident. But I want to raise a second point of why this is important as well. It's going to make collaboration with other health disciplines a lot closer, a lot richer. For example, collaborating and referral to food and nutrition experts such as registered dietitian.
So it seems like this is a very important issue, as you talked about. So I'm thinking, why is then nutrition sometimes sidelined in medical education? Why is that?
Well, I think it's basically, I have never been to medical schools, so I can't really speak from the inside. And I think it's more likely the direction of the medical curriculum. And this is the opportunity where the Health and Human Services and hey, we need to tweak the direction, include more nutrition education. Now, listen, there's always this criticism about a medical profession where they treat symptoms. But here's the opportunity for the medical profession to be seen as a total person care. When you raise the diet conversation, and very natural, it will also involve discussion about your home environment, right? What are the obstacles? So it really, I think, goes a long way to improving the patient and doctor relationship. But I want to point out one thing, Dawn, is that I think this is wonderful to have more nutrition education in a medical curriculum. However, we need to understand the importance of collaborating with food and nutrition experts. I wouldn't want to take 10 hours and 20 hours and even 100 hours of medical training and practice medicine as well. So let me give it a contrast. Registered dietitians have at least 4 to 6 years of college level training, and they have to undergo at least 10 months of supervised practical training in at least 3 scenarios, 3 settings in our society. But I want to point out one thing as well. Education is not enough. Now, you and I, probably, you and many, many people know what is healthy. But how come we're still not seeing the healthy behavior? Because there's a gap between knowing and actually doing it, right? To close the gap, you really need to have counseling skills, because what we're after is behavior change.
Okay, we just have about 30 seconds, Cindy. So you mentioned this point earlier. Can you talk to us about the importance of diet, not just for feeling healthy, but also preventing certain diseases as you get older?
Yes. 80% of chronic diseases, including heart disease, strokes, high blood pressure, diabetes, are preventable by better diet. So it's very, very important to start early, having a healthier conversation, healthier diet. So therefore, this is very important to save money for our government and also to end misery and make everybody healthier. It's good for the doctors, good for the patients, and good for the public health.
Okay, well, Cindy, it seems like we're always out of time. We're always short on time here, but they're telling me to wrap up. So thank you very much for coming on today this Sunday.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, from a grinning stone face in Scotland to a runaway horse in Indiana and a rare left-shelled snail in New Zealand, we bring you some of the weirdest headlines from around the world after this break.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, MyPillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says, whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing.
What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results. And I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of Meaningful Beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value, free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing Targeted Treatment Duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.
Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
If you haven't tried Meaningful Beauty yet, this new offer is something you don't want to miss.
This special offer is not available in any store, so don't wait. Scan the code, call the number below, or go to meaningfulbeauty.com right now.
After 2 days of soaring performances, 10 finalists are stepping into the spotlight today at NTD's 10th International Chinese Vocal Competition. Sherry Ning takes us inside the event.
From Puccini to Chinese art songs, the sound of bel canto filled New York City's Kaufman Music Center. Contestants from around the world came to New York for the 3-day competition, celebrating authentic vocal artistry rooted in truthfulness, compassion, and beauty.
I think it's a very good initiative, not forgetting these values and carrying them forward, sharing this mindset and creating things together with it. I believe that very spirit is truly a good thing.
This helped me to verify what is more than what is tradition and what I want, what I want to absorb from the world. And from the history, from the modern world. I think it purifies me because every time when you stand on the stage, you show everything, of yourself, your inner heart, your technique.
Bel canto, Italian for beautiful singing, is a traditional vocal technique emphasizing purity of tone, smooth phrasing, and precise control. It forms the foundation of Western opera arias and Chinese art songs, both required in this competition.
I think language is what holds the culture of a nation. Like the emotions, the stories, the regret, desire, and all kinds of feelings and stories are all in a nation's language. So in order for me to have the opportunity to sing in my mother tongue, to sing in Chinese, I think it's an honor.
Vocalists with the world-renowned Shen Yun Performing Arts served on the panel of judges. Soprano Tian Li shared her insights into vocal arts ahead of the competition.
In terms of vocal art, the human body itself is an instrument given by God. If you can use this instrument well and produce sound in the most correct position and most natural state, then you can truly make use of the way of singing that God has given to mankind.
This morning, opera legend Frederica von Stade guided contestants in a masterclass ahead of today's finals. Behind me is the list of finalists who will be competing today. You can watch the grand finale live on NTD or EpochTV.com. Stay tuned for the final results later today. Reporting from New York, Sherry Ning, NTD News.
Next is a story about overcoming obstacles. Scott Curley was homeless and spent years in prison early in life. But he didn't let that stop him from becoming the CEO of a multi-million-dollar tax firm with over 100 employees. He now speaks to others about his life path. NTD Sean Marshall has the story.
From homeless criminal to CEO of one of the fastest growing financial companies in the U.S., Scott Curley's story might just give you some ambition to get past any hurdles you've been running into.
If me as an average intelligence guy with 9 felonies in my background, homeless, 25 years of drug addiction in the streets, can achieve quote unquote business success and build a $50 million company out of $2,000, anybody can.
But how did he do it? How did he get from criminal to CEO? Well, he had to start somewhere, and that somewhere was reading books in prison.
From that moment, even though I knew I was looking at a long time, I did not know when I was getting out. But I knew some kind of way, some way I would get out one day. And so I spent the entire year, those years, just reading and reading everything I could. I read over 1,000 books. I read the policies on the prison doors when there was nothing to read. I read the Bible. I read the dictionary. I read anything that I could, and I just committed to making this time that I had to do worth something and not be a waste. And so that was really the pivotal point.
But not just books. He had to follow the right mental paths out of the darkness. With all those books read and knowledge gained, Curley ended up writing a best-selling book and became a public speaker.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Absolution, The Dark Path to Light that is exactly about that process, because it's been, I don't find anything special about it, but apparently the way it happened, folks think that it's extraordinary. We simply did it by doing, just steadily moving forward and not seeing the mistakes as being ending points, just seeing them as being learning opportunities. And
because of Curley's proven track record of success as the co-CEO of Finish Line Tax Solutions, Curley is growing the company into one of the largest tax resolution companies in the country. I asked Curley if there was anything he could share with other business people.
Not to be cliche, but I have to add this. That success is guaranteed for all of us in business, in personal lives. And the reason I say that, it's guaranteed because 100% of opportunities will not be denied us 100% of the time. It's mathematically impossible. 100% of doors will not be closed 100% of the time. It's mathematically impossible.
Curley's future plans are to turn his event, CommitCon, into a national movement and travel it around the country to give entrepreneurs, side hustlers, and people who have been counted out an opportunity to see that they still have options and opportunities. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
From a creepy grinning stone face unearthed on a Scottish island to a runaway horse on the streets of Indiana, and even a rare left-shelled snail in New Zealand, this week's odd news stories are sure to make you smile and maybe scratch your head. Here's a look.
The recent discovery of a creepy smiling stone face at an archaeological dig in Scotland left researchers themselves smiling ear to ear. According to the UHI Archaeology Institute, the fascinating find was made by a student helping out with an ongoing dig at a historical landmark site on the Scottish island of Rousey. The student was working on a trench wall when the garish, grinning face revealed itself. Officials described it as a rich red sandstone with yellow inclusions and suspect it may have originated from a nearby ancient church site. The exact date, origins, and use of the stone visage remain a mystery, but between this and an already significant haul of unearthed fragments and trinkets, it seems the team is certainly getting ahead. Okay. From a creepy stone face to a hot-footin' horse chase. Two, actually. Police in Auburn, Indiana shared video of a hot two-trot pursuit of a horse that got loose and went galloping through a residential area. WPTA reports that after a short pursuit, they were able to contain the animal and call her owner. But was this their first run-in with this fugitive filly? Nay. Turns out this exact same horse had busted loose a few days earlier and was rounded up in downtown Auburn by the same department. Finally, a snail with a unique shell is looking for love. Found in a New Zealand garden, it was discovered that this snail's shell spirals uncharacteristically to the left, where nearly all others spiral right. Who knew? The rare genetic condition also means the snail, named Ned, has reversed reproductive organs. So now the hunt is on to find another genetically freaky snail to get freaky-deaky with this uniquely shelled southpaw. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
And that's all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.